Karibu. Tumerudi. By the way, we are back. This is Politics Today on Science TV. Hata tumeongeza. We have added a guest on this second section. Our Nicholas Oyo. Mambo.
Poa sana Jonah.
Human rights activist.
Free
Secretary
Kenya,
General.
Yes.
Free Kenya. We still have Elizabeth Michael. There is a Kikuyu name you spoke. Wamuro? Give us the name.
Jonah, I am Wambo Inturu.
Aya. Our sign language interpreter in this section is Ann Wairimo. I don't know what your opinions are, my viewer, our viewer out there. Keep giving us your feedback. Just go to Science TV Kenya. Give us feedback there. Tell us what is it you think about some of the issues we are talking about here. By the way, hapa tunachapa siasa, so feel free. Whatever you say, feel free. We are ventilating. By the way, there is an importance of ventilating, Nicholas.
Yes.
The media should never be stifled.
True.
Come on, say something on that.
Jonah, we find it really amazing that you get government, you're already in position,
Right.
and then you feel that you want to fight media. It's not fair for anybody who is in government to feel that they have to fight media, really. It's not something that is, it's really uncouth, in my view. You have to allow media to speak, because that same media will allow you to be able to know what is happening in the country. For you to deal with the questions,
Yeah.
you'll be able to listen and use the media, analyze some of those things, and know that there is something that is going on. But when you stifle the media, what you're going to create is a scenario where they are going to close out from you, and you may not get the information that you need. Jonah, intelligence is not just about your people going to collect intelligence. It's also listening to those outlets like media. So I feel that if that is happening in this government, we've seen the case of, and I will mention him, Moses Kuria.
Right.
I feel that the president should have reprimanded him for that.
Now, Elizabeth,
Yes.
it was spoken in mother tongue. Did I hear the name prostitutes?
Yes, Jonah, it was said. It was mentioned,
Okay.
not in good faith.
Actually, it was said Okay,
Several.
whatever. Okay, right.
Yeah, and if I was a politician to counter back, to Mheshimiwa, I think before I say what I would have countered with, which is equally bad,
Yes.
I think I want to say, like, I think I've mentioned before that we need to exercise inaitwa nini, emotional balance,
Intelligence.
restrict,
Emotional intelligence.
yeah, kwa
Yes.
sababu akisema sijui malaya nini in reiteration of that, I would have said anafaa kujua umalaya ifanywe na mtu mmoja, you know, if you know, you know, okay. So that is not something that portrayed him in good light, and maybe next time he's supposed to choose his words wisely, but please, he should try to overcome his anger. Let him breathe in, breathe out before.
But certainly,
but he's human.
Media, did the media wrong him? We are not a court here to judge, but is there a role that the media might have played to rattle?
Jonah, we cannot talk about what the media did and what happened. If you feel that you have been rattled by the media or whatever happens, there are channels to channel that issue. You can talk to the media house itself, make a complaint, make a formal complaint to the media association. Media council is there, and there are so many other places that you can complain. The writers guild. So really, it is not something that you can say that we can't talk about what happened. What is important is how do you react to it.
We've been here before. You remember Chepkok?
Yes,
It was bad those days. They were literally boxed. You remember those days?
It's amazing that we are getting back to these kinds of things, Jonah.
Right.
We've had a lot of bad engagements between media and government, so to speak, media and politicians. So we really hope that this doesn't become another return to this, a second or third leg or fourth leg of it. We really hope that this stops.
Right.
And I hope government really takes time. And I'm wondering, there is a Ministry of Information. This is a ministry that should take charge of this matter and basically tell the trade minister, wacha tukuongelee tafadhali, tujue vile tutafanya hii kazi pamoja. I hope they can work it out.
How about the NCIC? Are they supposed to also check on this?
Jonah,
is there a place when
you know, I've always complained about commissions in this country,
Right.
and you know my feeling about the constitution and the fact that there are things that need to be ticked around to make sure that they work. The commissions that we have in this country usually are not very useful to us, because sometimes you expect them to come out and basically deal with a question, but they are a bit, should I say, I don't want to say afraid, but they seem to be a bit timidly in their engagements with some of these things, when especially it involves government. I hope that they can take their roles seriously, so that those people who have certain use of these things
Right.
could come in, because it's not only NCIC, it's also Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, because that's human rights issue. There's a media in our Bill of Rights, Article 35 is about media. So really, we really need to see how this can be worked out.
Right. Well, having said that, what are the resolutions that came up in Kamukunji? There must have been one or two things that, Liz, you tried to explain, but I want to hear from Nicholas now.
Yeah, I had some resolutions were pushed around. I think one of the things is that now we are not they've withdrawn from the talks, from the bipartisan talks. Jonah, my feeling about the talks, has always been that we feel that talks should have been not just but between two parties. There should be other people involved. But then they've said they've withdrawn. That's a major issue that affects the talks. That is a fatal challenge to the talks, because if Azimio withdraws, then there are really no talks.
Right.
So that means that we've had outcomes from that. The Kenya Kwanza side have said that now they'll continue with the appointment of the select committee to bring in the commissioners.
So you're talking of the IBC selection
IBC,
panel.
Yeah, the IBC selection
Has
panel.
it been sworn in?
Not yet. They stopped the process to wait for the talks. Now they are saying that they are going to, they've given them some, I think about 7 days now, it's about 5 days to go. After that, they are going to basically continue to populate that select committee with their so-called people who they say applied, but again, you know what will happen. It will just be people from one side.
Okay, that's your opinion. Proceed.
Yes, that's my opinion, and I feel that that government should really not go that direction. I feel that elections are too dear in this country to even allow certain thoughts that everybody can entertain to say that this was partisan. I hope they just stop it and find another way of dealing with it. That would be very unfair on their side. But I'm not even saying that it must be Azimio. It's really other Kenyans too. In fact, it should have been an independent kind of
all-inclusive, you say? All-inclusive as opposed to bipartisan.
Yeah, for me,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. What else?
There was a resolution to carry out civil disobedience. Civil disobedience, Jonah, if you want to understand, is you go against certain laws because you feel they are unjust. And if you want examples, Rosa Park example. Before Rosa Park happened, somebody else had already done it. I don't remember the name.
What's Rosa Park for our viewer?
Oh, for our viewers, Rosa Park is a United States, the lady who refused to leave a seat that she was assigned. That seat was assigned to be a white person. And for her, she sat there and said, I'm not going to leave this seat. Do what you want to do. That is civil disobedience, Jonah, in its best. And so even the issue of Gandhi and the salt matter, where they refused to collect salt, that is civil disobedience. So I really hope that Azimio, when they come up with such resolutions, also have people to think creatively about these things. Because one of the things I heard they were talking about was the question of refusing to pay taxes. There's a bit of some issue with implementing that kind of thing.
I just asked Liz that question.
Yeah.
How do you implement a tax boycott, really?
It's not easy to implement that. I had some few things were mentioned.
Yeah.
For instance, like walking. I hope that starts then with the leadership, so that it's not just the people who walk. We've walked in this country before, Jonah, by the way. We've walked in this country. So we did civil disobedience at the time when Mushuki came on the issues of transport problems, when Mushuki came. And Kenyans agreed with that. and that was civil disobedience at its best. So I really wonder if they have the capacity to implement something like that. I heard about carpooling. I feel that they are onto something, but they need people to go and sit and really come up with a raft of measures that can be called civil disobedience. Civil disobedience is not bad, really. It has moved the country. A lot of democracy has happened because of civil disobedience. Even voting for women. In England, in I think 1920-21, there, women actually went to parliament and chained themselves in parliament and refused to basically allow parliament to transact its business. That was civil disobedience.
How about
because of voting?
How about our laureate? What was her name? Wangare Maathai.
Yeah, even that
the
was civil
team that's-
disobedience
Yeah.
again. Even Okia Umtata chaining himself in the police station, that was civil disobedience. So really, I hope that when they talk civil disobedience, they have people who have an understanding of what they can put together, so that we don't get to a situation that the public goes against them again. If they, if you will.
And what happened during the previous demonstration when this woman stripped and went on top of a military vehicle? That was just hooliganism.
That is also civil disobedience, Jonah. And now it becomes that kind of situation.
Yes.
I really, and you know what happened with that? It became another story altogether.
Yes.
But then these things happen. We've heard of even sex boycotts with women in some other
I
countries.
remember that with I remember Raila saying that at some point.
Yes. So really, there is a range of issues that you can do civil disobedience.
Yeah, and filing also tax nil.
Those
we were told to
filing tax nil. Yes,
tax returns.
I think for us is a matter of. I don't think the government is out of this because they've passed the finance bill. They may find themselves in a lot of mess.
Right.
And I think if I was the president and if I was government, I would really take time to still continue to.
There are
find a way.
about 15 commodities here that are an issue, Nicholas, right? Are you talking of basic and essential commodities that probably if you zero rep them, you would not have all these issues? Probably they would tax, but
And Jonah,
I was listening to your mind last week when you were trying to tell me that the issue is unga, sugar, fuel, oil,
water,
Electricity,
kerosene, electricity.
fuel
Take
oil.
things about petrol, kerosene, and diesel.
right?
Jonah, really, we actually did that petition as Free Kenya to Parliament.
Okay.
For
I
those
would like to
goods.
hear that a bit because it seems to me like the issue here is the basic and essential commodities being taxed. Is that why there's a lot of kelele from your side, Elizabeth?
Jonah, yes, because there's why we have a lot of kelele is
Right.
because of these basic commodities that we are complaining about touch every mwananchi on a daily basis.
Right.
Jonah.
Okay.
Remember, when you get salary, unataxiwa kwanzia salary. Kuna kama it's like double triple taxation when you drop down to the smallest thing that you buy anywhere. It is taxed. So at some point the government is supposed to be lenient and see that by pushing its mwananchi, it's going to drive us into other things that we've had cases of people committing suicide because of debts, and that is where they're leading their people, and we're going to have a lot of problems in the near future.
Now, Nicholas, NHIF has been taxed doubled.
The number now is going to be taken to I think 2.75.
Okay.
It's another fight that has begun again because NHIF is not taxation. It is a levy, and so it's changing the law of NHIF law to basically bring it higher. I saw a picture of Atwoli and the president, and people said that now this is the other one. It's really a country where we are facing problems because we are having a debt problem that I think, and I really agree with Jimmy Wanjigi and Okia Umtata saying that we really need to audit our debt, specifically involve that doing it publicly, so that we can tell if this is extending to us, Then if there is debt that is considered odious and looks like something that we did not procure the way it should be,
Right.
then we should actually just say that we are not paying something that is not procured legally.
Right.
That might even help us at least reduce some of this tension. But Jonah, talking about the question of taxation and how it affects, just
Yes.
to go back to that,
Right.
if you tax people, there's a level that you can tax, Jonah. It's like when you take from maybe sugar from your tea. You can't put one in of sugar and you feel it. There's a point that when you continue taking away from people, it reaches a point that you can't take anymore. So there's a threshold of taxation, and so for us we are arguing that if you allow people some of the monies in their pockets, it will go into the economy, and people will be able to purchase things in the grassroots level. And if you remove taxes from petrol and kerosene and diesel, you're basically allowing production, and production means people will do factories, and when they do factories, it means other people will be given employment, and they will now also continue to support paying taxes. So really, I don't know if this is the right way to deal with the questions that you're facing. If you want to pay this debt, maybe there is need to now sit down and really put a committee in place. And if that committee is in place, I expect that Jimmy Wanjigi and Okia Mtata will be there, and even us as Free Kenya, we have issues of taxes. Put people who really have this issue at heart, so that you really can deal with the question of debt and taxation.
Okay, you've already spoken of civil disobedience as one of the resolutions that came out there. The first one you said was what?
The first one was that they withdraw from the talks. They basically said that they are leaving the talks. There are resolutions. There are several of them. They call for a signature collection.
Now, and even as you are doing that, there is a trend in that. While the government is trying to address the macro issues, the major financial issues, the micro issues are pending. You see, the Mwananchi there is talking about sugar.
That's the micro issues.
But the president and the executive are talking about the huge debt that we are owed out there. So they're trying to deal with the bigger issue. You remember the issue about financing production as opposed to financing consumption.
And Jonah, really, I agreed with the president in that.
Yes.
You have me on record. I said financing production. I mean, subsidizing production. I agree with, but then I always said that you cannot do that production. You talk about subsidizing production on one item only. That doesn't really give us out this thing. And I'll give you an example. We talked about LPG as one of the issues that has been given a zero rating in this budget. It's something
it's a zero rating as opposed to a tax exemption.
That's a zero rated. A zero rated item. And now the problem is that there's a production line of LPG. So at the production line, you give zero rating to consumers at the end, but then the people who are producing are still paying those taxes at 88%. So what do you expect? Or even 16% now. So you expect a situation where that production will not work. And this example I'm giving on the basis of, if you say only fertilizer, then what happens to the transport of that fertilizer? What happens to the farmer who has to basically do other things for them to get to a point to produce that food? So really, I really want to understand that how did this come about to the point where you're talking production. That's not production. It is basically fertilizer subsidy. Let's be very clear. Production is a whole range of things. I believe that's a discussion that we should have in this country.
That's an interesting perspective. So that's a fertilizer subsidy.
It should be fertilizer subsidy.
As opposed to unga subsidy.
It's not a unga subsidy. The unga is a whole lot of things before you get to unga. There's milling the unga, there's moving the unga from where it is. There is packaging.
So could it be that the leadership, by leadership I mean the executive here, the president and his team, are not balancing the macro problems versus the micro problems? Because at the end of the day, when you can go to the shop and take sugar and buy, right now I hear people crying with 1,000 shillings. You go with it into the supermarket and you're like, it's a problem here. You can't feed the family. So there's an issue of micro issues here. Is it that the president is focusing so much on the macro issues?
Yes, I think Jonah, that's probably the problem, because for you to feed the macro, you have to deal with the micro. It's the micro that gives you the macro, because you see, it is about people's jobs. It is about people being able to save. It is about them being able to meet their common usual needs that they need. So if you don't meet that, then how do you feed the bigger engagement? So really, the macro depends on the micro, in my view. And so if you don't deal with the micro very well, you end up at a problem. And Jonah, most revolutions have been about food and taxation.
Yes.
Yeah, there's always the issue of bread and cake.
Yeah.
Who said give them cake?
Marie Antoinette from France.
Yes, if they're crying for bread, you give them
of course,
cake.
it was for her. It was like, what's the problem with the choice? If you're crying about bread, and you can take cake. She didn't realize that there is no bread meant that we don't have this food.
Yeah.
So really, that is what we are facing in this scenario, John, where the government seems to think
and
that you can feed on cake because you don't have bread.
Okay.
It's very unfortunate if that is the situation you are facing. I think Jonah, the president, needs to come out and basically reorganize his economics team to help him deal with this question.
Agreed. Elizabeth, the problem we are facing here is our economics.
Yeah, the government needs to have checks and balances. We need to check and balance everything so that everybody is comfortable. The government can get what it wants, and the mwananchi can be able to, survive.
Okay. Now, you were talking about signature collections as one of the resolutions that were brought up at Kamukunji. Nicholas?
Yes, and the signature collections looks to be unfocused in my view, because it is being collected to withdraw sovereignty. What I had, to withdraw sovereignty from government. Now that's a very loaded kind of, should I call outcome, or maybe objective, because signature collection in this country, we can do several of these.
So you're calling it unrealistic?
I think there's need to really focus that signature collection, because in our constitution, signature collection is about petitions, really, one, and then the second one is about a referendum, which Free Kenya is part of the people who are doing something like that. So signature collection on the basis of withdrawal from sovereignty from government, I want to see how that works out. I hope that they have an understanding where they are headed. But signature collection, nevertheless, is something that you can also say is a declaration of people saying that we don't have confidence. When you do petitions, and petitions can be of any range, or so many issues of petitions, you can petition anything.
Right.
Yeah, and Article 37. So signature collections are usually one of those things that use in petitions.
Okay.
Okay. And Jonah, me being from the other mrengo.
Okay.
Unajua tulisema tunataka kushukisha zakayo. So we are heading there. If our grievances as the people of Kenya are not heard, we are working towards that.
Okay.
Because we have to be comfortable, and if the government and the executive does not want to listen to us, then that is where push comes to shove, and we act.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Nicholas.
The power is with the people, Jonah. Remember that. The power is with the people.
Right.
And yes, and that is why we want those signatures, and they are giving us a go-ahead ya kushukisha zakayo.
No. Okay, that's your opinion.
Yes.
That's your opinion.
It's my opinion.
Now, you've just spoken about signatures. Can you remember any other thing on the list of demands? What is this issue about the Charara 4? Was it amongst the demands there?
No, it's not in this one,
Yes.
Because Charara 4 is a demand that was for the talks, when they were organizing the talks. But then I think they didn't get to a point where they would have basically agreed on what they are talking about.
Yeah.
So unfortunately that has not gone on, because now it means that with the withdrawal, it means that these ones now they have to talk about the talks again. So that means that Cherera 4 is around there. But the issue that came up is that they are saying they're going to join forces with the civil society that has been pushing some of these things, and I think that means litigations and what have you, and some of the things that some of us have been doing, maybe, yeah, those are things that they say they want to join forces with.
Right.
Jonah, the reality of the fact is that every government and opposition, when there's an opposition and there's a government, the person who usually is very close to the civil society is usually the opposition, in Africa especially. So that every time there is a government, and I would tell you the same, if it was Azimio who is government and Kenya Kwanza was on the other side, still that would have been one of the things that would happen. The opposition and the civil society would work closely because they have, call it an interest that they're doing together.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's also, that one is just one of those things that you say because it's really part of the things that you always have to do.
So really, before you proceed, are our problems then politics or economics?
It is politics that mismanages economics, Jonas. I think our politics is a politics that did not really give us the opportunity. And I want to say something here. I want to thank President William Ruto for one thing.
Right.
That we are now gotten to a point. Jonah, we started our agitation as Free Kenya on VAT in 2018. At that time, a lot of Kenyans could not really understand what we were talking about. Now, every Kenyan understands what taxation is. Now you talk about taxes, a Kenyan is an expert, Jonah. So really, I think our politics has matured to a level of issues, and this is maybe because of the president, the current president, because he wanted to discuss issues.
Right.
But then now the problem we have is that the issues that were discussed in the campaign don't seem to be the issues that are now being dealt with in the leadership. And this is where now we need to connect this. If you promised us something, it should be seen that you're moving towards achieving that, Jonah. It should not be that I heard someone say that you can drive a car, but if you can't have, you lose everything in the vehicle, the engine, and you lose the tank, the fuel tank, and you lose the seats, and you lose the back, and you only have the seat of the driver and a few things.
Right.
Then it's not a car anymore.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So that is something that we feel that it is important that the government realizes that there's a balance to be played.
Now, I just told Elizabeth on that. Actually, I mentioned to Elizabeth that probably even as you're speaking about that as a youth, because she was saying is as a youth, I told her that you may have that during the campaigns, but now you're in leadership and you realize that the reality is different. Is it a problem of communication then? Telling people that when I got here, you remember the story of we got the treasury empty?
Yes, Jonah. Jonah, it's
so these are the realities probably that they are dealing with. Probably that's why when that Biblia, someone was asking, has that Biblia ever come down? You know, because as soon as it was to come down, unga was to come down.
Yeah. Jonah, it is something that really the egg and the chicken matter, because you can't really say that government collects money every day.
Yes.
Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 collects money as taxation every day. So really, talking about coffers, I would want to have that discussion on the basis of where did you think the money that was supposed to be allocated to something and it was not allocated. That would be a corruption issue. So really, it's a communication issue again, but then a communication issue where you want to have the Kenyans involved in this discussion. You don't want to do it by yourself. Do it with Kenyans.
Okay. You know, we are about to wind up. You have spoken of signatures. You've spoken of... are you through with that? The list of
there's of course the Sabasaba rally that is
Yes.
another resolution,
Another
and
one.
there was a critic on media disrespect of media. I think those were the issues that came out in that discussion. Yeah.
Okay. The bottom line here, final word, Elizabeth.
Well, John, I want to say this especially to the president. The bill that he has signed is not cast on stone. It can be relooked at, undone, redone. Let him not allow this thing to escalate to where now power goes to the people. Only that. Those are my last words.
Okay. Nicholas?
Those are very powerful words.
Yes,
power
I
goes to
thought
the
so.
people.
Yes.
But I think I agree with her on one thing, that power goes to the people. I'd really love that situation. Power goes to the people. That's what I fight for all the time. But then the issue is a question of how do you handle governance. Governance is about the economics, is about the politics, is about the micro and macroeconomics. So I hope that the president and his team can look at this thing afresh, and I agree with her. You may say that bill has passed, but that's not the end of this bill, I think. It needs to be something that we can discuss further. And I think for me, if it was me inviting the opposition, I would say that, okay, let's come and discuss about this finance bill afresh. They'd
Okay.
come to the table, I'm sure.
Okay. Well said. Viewers, this is Politics Today. This has been Politics Today. What are your views about the topics we've talked about here? Wewe ndio kusema, wewe ndio mwananchi. Get in there, Science TV Kenya. Give us your views. Find a way of speaking to us. Hapa tunachapa siasa. See you next week on the Politics Today here at Science TV. Bye-bye.